Airport security problems questioned. Could long lines get even worse during the summer travel season? Trump rallies end in violent protests. Police use tear gas to break up disturbances. President Obama leaves Vietnam. What's on the agenda for his next stop in Japan? And young people join lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Together, they put foster care in the spotlight.
That's my test shot there.
Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, May 25th, 2016. Good evening from Washington. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick. Well, this weekend begins the busy summer travel season, and travelers are facing longer security lines than ever at airports. Congress wants the TSA to address the problem delays that often result in missed flights. Jason Calvi reports from Washington's Reagan National Airport tonight. Jason?
Brian, if you're planning to fly out on one of these this Memorial Day weekend, brace for long lines. Recently, we've seen at major airports 90-plus minute wait times to get through security. But today, the TSA leader is saying and promising that they're addressing this problem.
Long security lines this spring. Thousands in Chicago missing flights because of the checkpoint waits.
This is unacceptable, and it is time for Congress to act.
Why the delays? TSA Administrator Peter Neffinger blames more people flying, a drop in TSA screeners, and all the carry-on bags as people avoid the checked bag fees.
I'm opposed to the baggage fees. I think it's abominable. The price of gas has gone down.
Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson has also asked airlines to temporarily cut or get rid of the checked bag fees.
We see a lot of bags coming through the checkpoint, about 4 times at the checkpoint of what gets checked, because every additional bag coming through the checkpoint is a potential slowdown to the processing of people through.
TSA will add 768 new screeners by mid-June. They've bumped up part-timers to full-time, and more bomb-sniffing dogs are on the prowl.
I think you're seeing a dramatic improvement.
And just yesterday, Chicago O'Hare's longest wait time was 15 minutes. But the top Democrat on this committee says passengers should be prepared for this holiday weekend.
There are normally more people. When there are more people, you have to be a little more tolerant of times. And so, but based on what I heard from the administrator, they've addressed the problem.
So here's one way to cut your time waiting in line. But it's going to cost you $85 to sign up for TSA's pre-check program. Right now, the national average for that program is 5 minutes. Compare that to the normal passenger wait time of about 30 minutes. Brian?
Jason, what about the TSA's handling of security issues?
It's definitely been on the mind of lawmakers, especially this week with the ouster of the top security chief at the TSA. And last year, secret tests done by the TSA found that 95% of the time, weapons and explosives were able to get through the security checkpoints. We're expecting new tests to be done pretty soon. Brian?
Jason Calvi at National Airport here in Washington. Thanks, Jason. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. Texas leads 10 other states in suing the Obama administration over a new directive about transgender students in public schools. The federal directive allows transgender students to use bathrooms and locker rooms that match their so-called gender identity. The lawsuit accuses the Obama administration of running roughshod over common-sense policies that protect children. Oklahoma, Alabama, Wisconsin, West Virginia, Tennessee, Maine, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Utah, and Georgia joined Texas in filing the lawsuit. The State Department finds Hillary Clinton disregarded cybersecurity guidelines. A 78-page report by the Inspector General's office blames Clinton and other former secretaries of state for leaving sensitive material vulnerable to hackers. Republicans say the audit shows Clinton was in clear violation of the Federal Records Act. Clinton admits her personal email server was a mistake, but claims it was never breached. She says she never sent or received anything marked classified. The FBI continues its own investigation. Police in California warned Donald Trump protesters of swift action if their demonstrations get out of hand and turn violent. Trump attends a political rally in Anaheim today where opposition groups are protesting. Angry protests erupted last night at a Trump rally in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Chief White House correspondent and political director Lauren Ashburn has more.
Brian, it began with a march outside the venue and quickly turned violent. Some blame Donald Trump for his harsh words on the campaign trail. The early demonstration included people of all ages. It was large but peaceful.
We need to make sure that he knows that we do not accept the message that he's bringing.
Some protesters were inside the rally. One was literally dragged out by security. As the afternoon wore on, tensions rose. Some demonstrators tried to push through the barricades. Police asked them to leave. But the angry crowd remained. They burned Trump T-shirts, threw rocks and bottles, and police fired pepper spray. Protesters remained in the streets for hours before they finally dispersed. Conservative commentator S.E. Cupp said the scenes were a consequence of Trump's rhetoric.
He has made the calculation that he will foment and stoke fear and anger, and there's a consequence to that.
Meanwhile, Trump is a little closer to the Republican presidential nomination. Washington state Republicans allocated most of their delegates to him in yesterday's primary. He's likely to get the remaining delegates needed for the nomination on June 7th. That's when California, New Jersey, and other states hold primaries. And President Obama landed in Japan today ahead of the G7 economic summit tomorrow. But the visit has been clouded with reports that a U.S. worker committed a violent crime against a Japanese woman, a move strongly condemned by Japan's prime minister. Ambassador Caroline Kennedy greeted the president on his first day in Japan. But what was supposed to be a friendly meeting among allies turned tense. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe expressed, quote, profound resentment about the death of a young Japanese woman on a U.S. base in Okinawa. A former U.S. Marine says he killed her. President Obama says he extended America's deepest regrets and condolences over the death.
We will be fully cooperating with the Japanese legal system in prosecuting this individual and making sure that justice is served.
The president will also visit Hiroshima. That's the city where the U.S. dropped the first atomic bomb, killing 140,000 people. It will be the first visit by a sitting American president. Brian?
Thank you, Lauren Ashburn at the White House. South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley signs legislation today outlawing most abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy. That law takes effect immediately. The only exceptions are if the mother's life is in jeopardy or a doctor determines the baby cannot survive outside the womb. A similar ban takes effect July 1st in South Dakota. Federal prosecutors seek the death penalty for the man accused of killing 9 people at a South Carolina church. 22-year-old Dylan Roof faces dozens of charges, including hate crimes. He reportedly wanted to spark a race war by targeting black parishioners at the Charleston church. Police say Roof opened fire during a group Bible study. Young people from across the country are shadowing members of Congress this week. They're learning firsthand how the government can help better the lives of foster children. Wyatt Goolsby spoke with some of them today.
I've never been here. This is actually my first time at Washington, D.C.
It's a day of firsts for 18-year-old Martin Moreno, the first time walking the halls of Congress, the first time meeting with a congresswoman, and the first time sharing his experience in foster care at the highest level of government.
And what do you do on your free time?
Moreno and 23-year-old Thessalonia Logan are part of this year's Congressional Foster Youth Shadow Program. Nearly 100 young people got a behind-the-scenes look at what lawmakers do every day. California Representative Karen Bass helped organize the program.
The issue of foster care and improving and transforming the foster care system in the United States is a very bipartisan issue, but because there's 1,000 issues that we deal with in any given week, it just doesn't reach the level of prominence.
Martin and Thessalonia had similar problems with the system.
Personally, I didn't have any knowledge of what options I had of foster care and like what things I could have taken advantage of.
Living with my aunt, I didn't know about any of the things I was eligible for when I was in high school. I didn't know, like, they help us with like prom and like a lot of other stuff.
2 things the government can improve, according to Thessalonia: communication and providing a support structure. She's considering becoming a social worker herself.
Since I've been into the system, I know like what goes on. I want to help other foster youth or any youth in general, like, so they won't have to go through what I went through.
This is the 5th year Congress has hosted a shadow program for foster youth. Bass says every year the program has steadily grown and nearly 100 youngsters are taking part this year. In Washington, Wyatt Goolsby, EWTN News Nightly.
Tennessee Representative Diane Black co-chairs the Caucus on Foster Youth. Representative Black, what do you believe is the Christian role in caring for children who are not biologically our own children?
Well, we're called in the Bible to take care of widows and orphans. Obviously, not everyone has the capability to be able to have either a foster child or a child that's adopted, but there are other things that they can do to help support these children.
How is this issue personal to your family?
Well, it's very personal, Brian, and in that I was a single mother with 3 children. Unfortunately, I had a husband that dealt with the devils of alcoholism and left me with 3 children, and I met a wonderful man who I'm currently married to today and is the father of all 3 of my children. And he adopted them, and he loves them dearly, and they love him as though he were their biological father. So we have a personal story that we can tell about a great ending where we have a forever family because of my husband's love for my own children.
A forever family. I know that that is what foster and adoptive children really need. What would your adoption tax credit bill do? Why do you think that it's needed?
Well, we would give families, especially those families that are of the lower income, and about half of the families that do adopt are families who are at 200% below poverty line, and so they really don't have a tax liability. So they don't get the advantage of having the adoption tax credit, which is there currently. And what this would do is it would give them the opportunity, even if they didn't have the liability, to get a fully refundable tax credit, which would help them with the dollars necessary for all of the process that it takes to adopt children. And so they may have room in their heart and room in their home, but just not room in their budget.
And isn't adoption really at the heart of being pro-life?
It certainly is. It is making sure that every child has that opportunity to have a loving home and a forever family. That's what we all want, no matter who we are. And we certainly want to make sure that we do everything we can here in the nation's capital to make that happen for children who are looking for a forever family.
Tennessee Representative Diane Black, thank you so much for spending a little time with us.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Coming up, the Pope greets the masses in St. Peter's Square. We share his teaching and prayer requests from today's audience. And from bad to worse, some young migrants face exploitation in their search for a better life. Storm chasers in Kansas capture several tornadoes on camera. The twisters destroyed at least 2 homes, critically injuring 2 people. Preliminary reports indicate at least one of the tornadoes was a half-mile wide. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. The Taliban names a new leader, replacing the man killed in a U.S. drone strike in Pakistan on Saturday. Malawi Akhundzada is described as educated and well-respected by his peers. A founding member of the Taliban believes he could be more open to negotiating a peace settlement than his predecessor was. A suicide bombing in the capital of Afghanistan kills at least 10 people. The government there says the bomber walked up to a vehicle carrying court employees, detonated an explosive vest. The attack happened during the morning rush hour in Kabul. The battle to retake the Iraqi city of Fallujah leaves civilians in a precarious situation. ISIS terrorists who have occupied the city for the past 2 years won't let them leave. U.S. warplanes are helping Iraqi troops target ISIS in an offensive that started on Sunday. Few families have been able to escape the fighting. ISIS reportedly threatens to kill them if they try. Some young migrants looking for a new life in Europe end up as victims of exploitation. A few of them share sobering stories. They arrive on the shores of Europe from places like North Africa, Syria, and Egypt, carrying little more than dreams of escaping lives of poverty and violence. But for thousands of underage migrants, only hardship awaits. Germany Station is Rome's transportation hub, but for many migrant teens, it's a source of work. Many resort to selling drugs and sex at that station to survive.
If someone wants to have sex, he asks them to follow him to his house. It works like this. They come to the Termini station. They'll say, "I will give you some money if you come to my place." That's how it works.
18-year-old Abib arrived from Egypt when he was a minor. Now, we're not using real names or otherwise identifying underage migrants in order to protect them. Habib says he makes up to 300 euros a day dealing drugs at the station.
We've noticed, in particular, crimes related to drug selling. Minors are used for drug selling because for them, the penalty is quite low, and the chance of being arrested is even lower compared with adults.
Others resort to working as undocumented labor. They sneak into this produce market outside Rome and are paid a few euros to load and unload fruit.
It's all good. 17-year-old Saeed says he's paid €5 a day, so we collect this stuff, he says, and then someone comes with a car and buys it.
Similar stories play out across Europe. Europol estimates at least 10,000 kids have gone missing from shelters or reception centers. The EU says it's developed systems to improve the reception of minors, provide health care, and help unite them with relatives more quickly. Sweden gets by far the most unaccompanied minors applying for asylum, 35,000 in 2015.
Our life is difficult. Our lives have been hard since we were young. When we came to Sweden, we were happy as we thought we would get help, but we didn't get any help at all.
17-year-old Yusuf came to Sweden from Morocco. He now lives on the streets of Stockholm. He and his friends get by stealing food from supermarkets and sleeping in mosques. And Greece is evacuating a sprawling makeshift refugee camp on its border with Macedonia. More than 700 police officers are there to keep the peace. 2,000 people left yesterday. Hundreds more were leaving today. They're being sent to newly built shelters in northern Greece. The evacuation dashes the dreams of those who had hoped to cross the border in search of better lives in Europe. Pope Francis says prayer is not a magic wand. He talked about prayer and prayed with the crowd in St. Peter's Square today for his public audience. Alan Holdren, Rome Bureau Chief for EWTN's Catholic News Agency, is joining us. Alan, on this International Missing Children's Day, what did the Pope say about our responsibility toward at-risk children?
He said that it's the duty of all people, Brian, to protect children, especially those most exposed to risks of being exploited or being trafficked. He invited particularly civil and religious authorities to protect children, especially those who are in these different situations of being missing. And he invited also prayers for the missing children, that they may be returned to the families or to their loved ones in serenity and peace.
And just before the apostolic blessing today, who did he remember with a special prayer?
He remembered the victims of attacks in Syria in two different cities that just took place a couple days ago on Monday. These two cities were largely spared from the conflict that's been going on for the last 5 years. The Pope remembered the more than 100 victims and asked for prayers not only for them and their families, but also for the attackers, that they might convert.
And wasn't persistent prayer really the focus of today's teaching?
That's right. Pope Francis remembered the parable in Luke's Gospel where Jesus speaks of the widow and the unjust judge. And this widow, who really is persistent, she hounds this judge to decide in her favor justly. And finally he gives in, but not because he's a good man, it's just because he doesn't want to see this woman anymore. So Pope Francis spoke about God the Father and how if we turn to him in persistent prayer, he as the good Father, the merciful Father, will always answer our prayers, maybe not in the ways that we think, but he said it's not a magic wand, that God is always there to listen to our prayers.
And finally, tell us about a thrilling ride for a young boy today.
There was a little American boy from Denver in the front row at the general audience. He's the son of a teacher, professor at the Augustine Institute, Edward Sri. The little boy's name is Carl. He's 9 years old, and he was on pilgrimage. The Pope came out just at the very beginning and invited him up on the Pope-mobile. He was up there for about 20 minutes as the Pope went around blessing people and saying hello. Really an exceptional experience. He told us afterwards that it was a once-in-a-lifetime.
A story he'll have to tell for a long time. Alan Holdren, thanks for joining us.
You bet, Brian.
Up next, the Disabled American Veterans' response to controversial comments by the VA secretary. And pop star appearance, what Paula Abdul is doing at the White House today. Look at this new lava flow just discovered from Hawaii's Kilauea volcano. It looks intimidating, but isn't posing an immediate threat to nearby communities. In 2014, lava forced a village to evacuate and destroyed at least one home. Kilauea, by the way, has been active as a volcano since 1983. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Brian Patrick. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs says he deeply regrets comparing long wait times at VA healthcare sites to waiting in line at Disney theme parks. Secretary Robert McDonald says he never intended to suggest he doesn't take service to veterans very seriously. Today's statement comes after a Republican senator called for McDonald's resignation. Garry Augustine is the Washington headquarters executive director at Disabled American Veterans. What do you think the Secretary was trying to say with that comparison, Garry?
Well, thank you for having me, Brian. I believe he just used an unfortunate analogy to try to explain what he's trying to change at the VA. And the change at the VA is more than just fixing the wait times. It's fixing the culture, helping veterans have a positive experience from the time that they first interact with the VA to the resolution of their claims or their health issues. So that's one measure. I think he was trying to explain that they take into account many more measures than just a wait time.
Are you satisfied at all with his apology today?
Well, I've known the Secretary since he came on board, and I can tell you he's a tireless advocate for veterans. He was on his way into retirement when he took on this job. Took on an agency that was kind of stuck in a bureaucratic malaise or inertia, and has come in with a lot of business acumen to try to make changes. When you try to change a large agency like that, it's very difficult. But he has been someone that has gone and visited more hospitals, gone more town hall meetings, and gotten out of the office and actually gotten into the field to try to understand what needs to be done to accomplish that. So I think it was just an unfortunate choice of words, and if everybody that made unfortunate discussions of things that they were trying to explain in Washington was fired, we wouldn't have anybody left to take care of the business.
So as an injured veteran yourself, what has your experience been with the VA health system?
You know, I've been using the VA healthcare system for 40 years, and it's location specific. There's over 900 points of contact with many hospitals, clinics, and different places where you can go get treatment at the VA and get taken care of. So some are very good, some need help, some need more attention to try to work out issues that they have. As a matter of fact, we're part of a group called the Independent Budget. We have proposed a plan to try to help resolve some of the VA access issues. We believe that that's a good starting point, and the Secretary has been very receptive to our plan. He has his own plan, it's called My VA, and they are doing a very good job of trying to move it forward.
Well, thank you and all of our veterans as we remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice this coming Memorial Day. Garry Augustine.
Thank you very much
DAV,
for having
thanks.
us.
A collection of previously unreleased writings by Mother Teresa will come out in mid-August, entitled A Call to Mercy, Hearts to Love, Hands to Serve. This book focuses on mercy and compassion. Pope Francis will declare Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta a saint September 4th. Mother Teresa died September 5th, 1997, at age 87. Pop star Paula Abdul greets kids from across the country today at the White House. The Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter is here for Michelle Obama's Turnaround Arts Talent Show. Students are performing with artist mentors like Abdul.
Dance is the mother of all languages. You don't have to dance in French. You don't have to dance in Greek. You just dance, and that's a visual medium, and it transcends all language barriers. And I've seen so much improvement, not only with their self-esteem, but also happiness, and their attendance in school raises, and it's so important.
The program helps high-need, low-performing schools with arts, dance, theater, and music programs. For our EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick, and we leave you tonight revisiting the Pope's general audience today in St. Peter's Square. Good night. God bless you.